As we were doing research for this podcast, we were listening to some previous interviews that you were in, and you had this really interesting anecdote about a cantaloupe. And so if we can kind of double click on this relationship, food being this interface as a relationship with the earth, but could you share a little bit about, different origin stories and how to think about food maybe when one's like traveling through the grocery store?
Yeah, so that's sort of an analogy about food systems and what it takes to get any piece of produce, we'll call it, from the field to a consumer's plate. And I think one of the things that you realize early on as you start to delve into these systems, if your only interaction with your food system has been sort of at a grocery store, you've seen produce sitting on a shelf. And that as a technology sort of articulation hasn't changed for thousands of years, right? Like you could go to the medieval times if you want and probably see fruit on a cart. But the pathway that it takes to get there has obviously changed and evolved massively. And as we've gotten into different ways that we've chosen to sort of express our food system, we've chosen to lay certifications over the top of it. We've chosen to lay sort of market dynamics over the top of these things. You realize that, those pathways and the story behind that any given cantaloupe may vary widely from just cantaloupe X dollars per pound sitting on the cart. So you might have behind that a producer who has invested heavily in environmental remediation and conservation and protection, and they may not be spraying pesticides, or they may. So those sorts of details of production are lost ultimately at the point of sale. And that has been sort of a central theme in the way that we think about how do we make this food system better. And we've tried to sort of, lay these proxy certifications on to say, hey, we're going to help track the identity of that cantaloupe, or we're going to help reward the farmer for doing things that we want them incentivized to do. But if that story is ultimately not getting across to the consumer when they're buying that, or they don't understand what is really the difference between an organic cantaloupe or a regenerative organic cantaloupe and just a regular old cantaloupe, what is that, aside from price, which I can tell the difference of right away because that's on the label. But if I don't really understand the rest of the context behind that, what have we actually done? How have we deepened the participation between a person and their food system? And so that's why I bring that up, is it layers in sort of the complexity that you have to deal with when you're working in these systems. And it's brought up right against this sort of very obvious and simplistic interaction, which is people walking up to fruit on a cart and picking it up. But there's a lot that happens in between, and there's either a lot of context missing or a lot of context that can still be filled in.